Joining me on DIRTRACKR Conversations is Ashley Stremme, and Ashley is the host or co-host of Wing Nation, co-owner of Lethal Chassis, and any number of other things. And I guess I want to start with when you are a little girl, a teenager back in Pennsylvania, growing up. Did you think at the time that dirt racing would be or would end up being as big a part of your life as it is right now?
Never in a million years. Honestly, it's what I love to do. My dad raced sprint cars, so being at the racetrack was my happy place, but literally I never in a million years thought this would become what it has become. I'm extremely blessed. I knew that racing some way would be involved, but probably more from the fan side of things than actually being knee deep in it like I am right now. It's been incredible, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Tell me, do you remember, or what is your kind of earliest memory of going to the racetrack? And I'm assuming it's Port Royal, but what is kind of those, those early memories?
Yeah, so probably my most vivid memory as a kid actually was at Williams Grove. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. My dad was in a bad accident a couple weeks prior and broke both his legs. And so we were there just to watch a friend of ours race, and he went to the pits, and my mom and I decided to go to the grandstands. Little did I know that at 5 or 6 years old, I was going to be introduced to Beer Hill Gang, or what it is now. Mom said to me about halfway through, she's like, man, this place is getting rowdy. And at that point, it's now Beer Hill Gang. But no, my dad was racing, or we went to watch, and our buddy came out on the track, and he's given us a little number like this, and here comes his backup car out, and there comes a guy waving, and my dad with 2 broken legs still managed to climb in a race car for some reason.
I love it. I know your dad raced sprint cars, but did he always race sprint cars, or were there other cars that he raced?
Yeah, no, he started out in mini sprints, I would say is kind of where things really started. Obviously, he raced dirt bikes and go-karts and that kind of thing growing up, but mini sprints and then straight into sprint cars. And then he dabbled with little things like Odysseys, if you remember those back in the day. And but yeah, 410 sprint car racing was where he probably had most of his career.
When you are growing up, is racing something that you yourself tried or wanted to try? I mean, was that something that drew you, or did you have fun just running around the pit area and just being a kid?
No, I started racing go-karts when I was about 6 years old. That kind of went away, and that's when Dad kind of really stepped into the 410 world. As I got older, I started racing enduro cars when I was 15, 16 years old. And at one point, Dad actually wanted to put me in a sprint car. And at that point in our family, we couldn't field 2 race cars. And I knew that I'd kind of be shutting down his dream for me to just try to make it. So at that point, I wasn't really ready to climb behind the wheel because I knew my dad was still having fun. He was still loving it. Now that I look back on it, do I wish that I would have taken that opportunity? Absolutely. But I've had the opportunity to race the better half dash at Charlotte with the women in the NASCAR world and do things like that here and there. And it kind of scratches my itch, but not really. I've been begging my husband to get me a modified, but he won't. So,
that doesn't seem fair.
It doesn't, no, but we got a lot going on too. So
yeah. Like as you kind of grow older and get past high school and things like that, was racing and dirt racing, did it stay a part of your life, or was there a point where it kind of went away and then came back?
Yeah, so my dad was still racing sprint cars while I was in college. So literally I'd made sure when I laid my college schedule out that my Friday morning classes were early so I could get back on the road home to catch up with Dad before he left for the racetrack. So that was pretty much through my college career. And then after he quit racing, there definitely was a little lull there. Obviously, I was still going to the track just because it's where my friends were. It's what I love to do. But I was still involved in racing. I was working as Miss Motorsports. I was doing promo model stuff, working for different companies in the racing industry. So even though there was a lull on the competitor side of things with my dad no longer racing, I was still actively involved in one way or another.
When did you, I feel like, a big thing that fans probably know you from is, all of the media work you do, TV and Wing Nation and all of these things. Was that media stuff, when did that kind of come into play that could potentially be a career path for you going forward?
Honestly, it all started with Wing Nation. I had moved to Charlotte with my husband, David Stremme, and Kendra and Steve obviously had Wing Nation, and they were trying to find, when Kendra couldn't be there, they were trying to find another female who knew enough about sprint car racing that could chat it up with Steve every single week when Kendra couldn't be there. And I got this phone call one day, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to be on Wing Nation?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to, but I have no formal training whatsoever. You're going to throw this central PA girl into a world with a microphone, and I have no idea what I'm doing." And here I am. Never, like I said earlier, never in a million years did I think it would come to this. Obviously, Steve has been a huge leader into my learning of what my knowledge that I know now on the media side of things. But I've always been that chatty person. Like, I can chat to Billy, 2 rows down, just because it's something that I enjoy. As long as our passions are the same and we have the same interests, I can really talk to anyone if necessary. So that side of things wasn't so bad. It was just more of overcoming that issue of, not being seen as that, because that's not what I went to school for. That's not what I did. I had no formal training whatsoever. So that was kind of hard for me to get over. I still get nervous to this day. You slap a microphone in front of me, I still get the jitters, but that's because I love it.
When you what was that career path initially? Like, what did you do in college, and what did you think you were setting yourself up for?
Yeah, I went to school for graphic design. I was wanting to get into the gaming world and creating video games. And eventually, my uppermost goal was to work for Pixar. But as soon as I got out of college, then I started working at a newspaper, laying out the papers, making ads, doing that kind of thing. And then that quickly all changed when I moved to North Carolina I end up marrying my husband.
I'm curious, like, when you're growing up in, obviously Central Pennsylvania is this massive 410 sprint car area. And now you're like kind of so heavily involved in modifieds, but like, were you fans of multiple divisions, multiple categories? Were you a pavement fan? Like, or has it always just kind of been 410 sprint cars?
410 sprint cars is definitely my first love. I do enjoy late models significantly, but asphalt racing, I'll be honest, to this day, I can't really find enjoyment in it. It's what my husband did at the time. So, him and I would always argue. He'd tell me that, dirt was for farming, and I'd tell him that, asphalt was for getting to the real racetrack. So we always had that argument. So obviously, as you can see, I won the war there. But no, it takes a lot for me to get involved into the asphalt world. A lot of laps, a lot of days spent at the track for one night of racing, and a lot of money spent too. So yeah, I was definitely a sprint car girl all my life. I still am. It's still my first love. When sprint cars are on the track here, you'll catch me just flying up real quick just so I can watch. But obviously the modifieds pay my bills. But I love them too. But I'd throw the late models in there. I really enjoy the late models as well.
How did you do kind of with your dirt fandom? Like, you're with David, obviously going to the racetrack a lot. Like, were you able to kind of keep up still with the dirt stuff that was happening? Or did you kind of have to like come back to that later, after you and David kind of transition?
Yeah. So when you're in the Cup garage every single weekend for 4 days out of the week, you know how it is. You have a lot of downtime. So I was able to keep up. That was kind of before Dirt Vision and pay-per-view and flow racing and things like that really became prominent. So it was more of, reading your local news, auto racing news, your area auto racing news, and following stuff online with hose heads or whatever the platform was. But yeah, I definitely tried to keep up with it even when we were on the road.
In having your involvement with, 410 sprint car racing now versus you growing up around it back then, are there differences kind of in tracks in central Pennsylvania in the racing, or do you think that it's just kind of carried on and it still kind of is what it was?
There's definitely changes. Obviously, you look at the car itself, technology has come a long way, but yet these guys are still setting up on the same setup blocks they have for the last 50 years. But that being said, we were local Saturday night racers. We didn't travel a series, you know, we work with the World of Outlaws, which is absolutely incredible. But, you know, when I was a kid, the World of Outlaws are just as big as they are to me now. It is the World of Outlaws. It's the premier series. But I think things have definitely changed. Basically I want to say maybe after the races are over, a lot of these guys load up and get out of there. Where before, I remember, you know, hanging out with Ronald Laney when he would come to town, and so many different guys that would, when they did come to town, and it was still a Saturday night show for us, even though it was the World of Outlaws, you hung out. The camaraderie was a lot different than I think it is today. These guys are racing 90 plus shows a year. So Volusia's a little bit different just because they're here for a week, but these guys got to load up and get to the next place, and it's going to take them probably 6-10 hours depending on where they're going. And sometimes, yeah, it's just down the street. But I think the camaraderie's changed for the fans, drivers over the years.
And I guess kind of similar question for, you know, this kind of mod world that you exist in now with Lethal Chassis. What are kind of differences? I mean, and I'm assuming that, you know, that kind of pack up and go on to the next thing is probably consistent there as well. But, you know, kind of similarities and differences between the mod world and the sprint car world.
Yeah, the mod world's a little bit more laid back. I'd say that the sprint car world has become a little bit more corporate because you do have large sponsors coming in. I think the mod world still does have that local dirt track down home feel. A lot of these guys have toter homes or bring their campers, so they're staying at the racetrack instead of headed to a hotel. So you still have that, hey, let's have a beer afterwards in the pits. We'll all hang out. We'll kind of debrief our night and just enjoy each other and enjoy why you're here, because yeah, we're all here to race. We're all here to win, but it's about the fun that you're having along the way. So it is a little different, I do think. But there's still a lot of similarities. We're all still competitive, no matter if we're racing wheelbarrows or 410 sprint cars or modifieds or whatever it is. We're all competitive and we all want to win. So at the end of the day, that's still the same.
You guys, you and David with Lethal Chassis have obviously had a ton of success, and even for a company that hasn't even been around that many years. But what were the origins of Lethal Chassis? Where did that kind of come from? You know, why did you guys decide to start doing that? You know, what's kind of that origin story?
Yeah, so David was kind of wanting to step away from Cup at that time. Things were kind of winding down. There really wasn't a clear path for him to go in the next step. And so he really just wanted to step away at that point. And he had maybe raced 6 or 7 dirt races in general, let alone, I think, maybe 4 mod races. And David's work ethic is pretty incredible. So when he came to me with the idea to build mods, at first I was like, hold on a second, you've raced dirt 5 or 6 times, like, and now you're just going to build a dirt modified. We were playing with them, and like I said, only have raced a handful of times, but the guys that we were working with, the chassis builder that we had, we couldn't get the parts that we needed. We couldn't get the development and the help that we needed at the time. And David's like, I'm pretty sure I can do this. It's 4 wheels, tin and tubing. Like, we can make this happen no matter if it's dirt or asphalt. And like I said, I knew his work ethic. So at the end of the day, I knew that he was going to do no matter what it took to make sure that we could at least get headed down the right path. If it didn't end up working out well, obviously we would have had to try something different, but it was kind of crazy. I was definitely on board, but there was still that moment of uncertainty. I'll never forget our very first night out in our car. I literally, before he went out, I was like, God, if this is a sign, like, you need to show it to me, like, that we need to keep driving this way. And he went out, set the new track record at County Line Raceway in Elm City, North Carolina. And then we won the feature that night. So that pretty much was God telling me this is the way we needed to go.
How long did it kind of take you guys to gain traction? I remember, I can't remember if it was 2014, 2015, going to DIRTRACKR Nationals and Stremme winning. And then like the next day, like Jason Bolio, like buying the car out from under him. And like, I know that was probably pretty early on, but like, how long did it take for people to kind of start to realize what you guys had going on?
We were very blessed at the beginning. We kind of hit a hot streak right out the box. One guy who took a chance on us went out to his first race in Stremme, Georgia, and he ended up winning there. And so it really just kind of all snowballed so quickly. I don't even think we expected it to happen that quickly. And then, like you said, Jason ended up buying our car turnkey here, and we only had one car at that time. So we ended up sitting out the rest of the week and just basically helping him. And that's where I think our customer service is so important. And that's why we only build 25 to 35 cars a year, just because we want to make sure our customers are taken care of. They know that they can call at any time and David's going to pick up the phone. And that just really speaks for our company. You know, we have incredible customers. They lean on us, but we also lean on them, and they know they're a part of something much bigger, and they're part of a family with us. And that's really where it came from. I think every year, but last year was the first year we didn't sell a car here, one of David's cars here. And now this year we've already had people inquiring, but none of our cars are for sale this year.
How do you guys kind of split, running the company in terms of, what do you do? What does David do? And how does that kind of work?
Honestly, when you own your own business, you do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We have actually 3 full-time employees now. And then we have 2 guys that are contract laborers on the side. So David is literally the one welding the cars together. People are astonished by that even to this day when they see him welding on the car when they walk in the shop. I guess they just don't expect that. But no, I handle basically phone calls, part sales, social media, all the office paperwork stuff. But don't think for 1 minute that if we're a little bit behind in the shop, or, one guy is out, that I'm not on the shop floor assembling parts or bleeding brakes or doing whatever I can to help out. Honestly, at the end of the day, we all have to make the wheel turn. So whatever it takes is really what it boils down to.
The kind of world of modified chassis seems like it's like super competitive. Like there's so many, different guys kind of building different things, and like there's so many modifieds throughout the country. How do you kind of keep up with things as they change? I mean, is Dave kind of, is he kind of constantly iterating? Like, is he using his races to improve the chassis? Like, what does that kind of process look like?
Yes, absolutely. That's kind of the beauty of having your chassis builder being a driver, because a lot of guys will come up and they'll be like, "Oh, what do you got on your car? We don't have this." And David's like, hold up. Like, this could be a $5,000 piece. It could be a $500 piece, but we don't know if it's even going to work. So let me test it. Let me do the R&D for you guys. And then you guys can go to work and we'll determine if it's the right thing. So I think that's really what makes it good for us. A lot of these guys are out here to race for a living. We don't. We race for fun. We race because we love it. But most importantly, we race to help our business. So to me as a wife and somebody who's extremely competitive, it gets frustrating to me knowing that on any given night we're throwing the kitchen sink at our race car just to try new things, when I'm like, I just want to win, So, but that's what it takes. Obviously our business comes first. So we got to make sure that our guys can be fast, but we need to be able to help them be fast. And so, sometimes we're completely out in left field, but it's because we're trying something. And to just go test every single week, A, becomes financially draining, and B, it just doesn't provide the same atmosphere as actually being on the racetrack in a race situation. So there's a lot to be said for trying things when you're actually racing instead of just going and testing.
What's your guys' shop situation? I know you were in Mooresville, but are you now in Pennsylvania? Or do you have a second place in Pennsylvania? Like, what's that look like?
No, we're still in Mooresville at the moment. We'll be there till probably end of April, beginning of May. And then everything, we hope, fingers crossed, will be up and moved, and we can be from Mooresville to Mifflintown, shut down for 2 to 3 weeks tops, and then completely back full functioning in Pennsylvania.
And as you guys like kind of set your schedule every year, you don't run a tour, you don't run a series, but how do you decide where and when to go race?
Volusia is always on the schedule no matter what, just because that rat race of off season, as they call it, is pretty hectic for us. That's our busy season with building cars. And as for that, there really isn't anything on our schedule from that point on. David might have an idea as to a couple of things he'd like to hit, but again, our business really dictates what we do. Currently, we're booked through end of August right at the moment. So that limits, and we know we have a 3-week shutdown in there with our move. So that really dictates when we can go racing and when we can't. Basically, it's just build, hope you're ahead of schedule. And if you are, then you can head off to it for a weekend if there's something you want to go hit. But really, we don't build a schedule. It's kind of just pick and choose as we go and how our schedule allows us to.
You got to do some TV this year, and I'm curious about how that experience was. And it was, I don't know all the races that you did, but I know for sure you did late models at Cedar Lake. So like, was that like a weird transition trying to do late model stuff when you're kind of so heavily involved in these other worlds?
No, not at all, because I'm really close with a lot of late model guys. In fact, I'm probably closer with the late model guys than I am the sprint car world, because the sprint car world sees me as media. You know, we can't tell her all the
Yeah, you
secrets.
can't talk to her.
Go tell somebody. Yeah, exactly. So I love my late model guys. And I think there's kind of a connection between the late model and the modified world. Obviously, they're not the same cars, but there's a ton of similarities. So David works with a bunch of those guys and picks their brain and vice versa. And so there's a nice little kind of deal we've built with several of those guys. So with the late model world, it's my second home, honestly. A lot of those guys are my close friends. And so a place like Cedar Lake, when the sprint cars and the late models are there, it's really a perfect world for me.
Are you going to get more opportunities to be able to do TV stuff like that?
Yeah, I know we're working on some stuff coming up in April. I don't think I'm allowed to really drop anything just yet, but there's some big dirt asphalt place coming up here in April. And so I'm extremely excited, and we'll see what that becomes. But yes, there are some things on the horizon.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your background right now, because those people that are going to end up watching this are going to see Volusia Speedway Park behind you. And when most folks hear this, DIRTRACKR Nationals will be mostly over for the modifieds. But how is the week going for you? You know, what is it about Volusia that's fun for you and David? Like, and just kind of give me an idea of what that place is for you guys.
Well, it's a way to get out of the cold, but it's been pretty darn cold here this week. Today's actually supposed to be the first nice day. It's supposed to get up to the 70s, so fingers crossed. But honestly, that's why we do come here. Like I said, it's a rat race for us the last 8 weeks, trying to make sure everybody has what they need, have their cars ready, because this is the Super Bowl for us. It's a huge race. There's 96 cars here in the modified division, which is a record. So that's absolutely insane. 21 of them are ours. They're lethal chassis. So we're running around here like crazy. But it's just to get out of the weather. It's that cabin fever. You've been cooped up all winter long. You're just ready to get back racing, and you get to do it with all your friends. So it's just that. And it's a different vibe here at Volusia. I think everybody's just excited to get back racing. So it has a little bit of electric that comes with it. So far this week, we haven't finished worse than fourth. We have 2 fourth place finishes, and last night we finished third. Obviously, we're trying things so that, again, that the competitor in me is like, I just want a Gator trophy. Like, that's all I want. But we're lucky to have a couple of those already. But like I said, we're out here trying things and trying to make our cars faster and help our customers.
Once the season kind of gets rolling, how do you personally kind of balance Lethal and Wing Nation and doing TV hits? Like, how does that all kind of work together?
It doesn't.
Okay.
And literally, I don't know how I've managed to make it. That saying, fake it till you make it. Well, I'm right on par with that. It's crazy. It gets a bit insane. I know David's ready to wring my neck sometimes, because the TV stuff especially was pretty last minute. So I'd be like, hey, it's Tuesday. They want me to fly out Friday. And he's like, well, we've got 4 cars going out this week. Like, we've got things going on in Pennsylvania with the buildings up there going on. And I'm like, we'll make it work.
You're like, bye.
Yeah. No, he's thankfully he's pretty flexible with it. That's probably the biggest thing is I feel like him and I do everything together. Literally, we race together, we have fun together, we work together. We literally spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week together, which is unheard of for most couples. So we do have a cool little deal of how we manage things. There's a level of respect that, I don't commit to anything till after I've run it by him and vice versa. It does get a little crazy, especially, Wing Nation, we basically tape every single Monday. So that's a given. unless, Steve gets caught on the NASCAR World in a rain out or something like that. But so that's a pretty solid deal. But then you throw in the TV stuff on top of that, and then you throw our schedule into it, and then a move to Pennsylvania and water main breaks and things going wrong with buildings, and it gets a little hectic. But at the end of the day, you just roll with it, fake it till you make it, like I said.
As we sit here right now, it's Friday. It's the first day of World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series. You've been at Volusia, up to this point, so you've seen the first two All-Star nights. Put your media hat on. What are you excited to see this year from the sprint cars? What tracks, what drivers, what are your kind of overall thoughts on what we're about to kind of witness?
I think this is going to be a really exciting year. Obviously, there's been so much silly season that happened so late this year. People are still announcing a week or 2 weeks ago what they were doing for the year, which is extremely late. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting and exciting and crazy, more than anything, year for them, especially because there's no break this year. Usually they had a few weeks off before they hit their second race. Now they go straight to, I think it's Rome, and I don't even know the schedule off the top of my head, but I think that's going to throw a wrench into it for them as well, because they always tell you that the sprint car guys will say, Volusia, there's no other place like it. We just kind of race there, and then if it's good, great. If it's not, we throw it out. It doesn't matter. But their schedule's pretty intense this year. It'll be interesting to see if they make it to California with, everything that's happened in the world with COVID and that kind of thing. But I think it's going to be pretty exciting. And, Logan Schuchart, I know we talked about him a lot last year. He really set the world on fire, and he's already proven with the All-Stars that, he's going to be another force to be reckoned with this year. So I'd be excited to see if he can't give Brad and Donnie a run for their money this year for the championship.
No, I super agree. And especially, that 13th to the win run the other night, and just what we've seen out of him, he's super fast. What, obviously being from Pennsylvania, you've kind of watched that rise, but, what are your thoughts about Shark and just, that first year where we didn't even think they were going to finish the year to kind of where they've become?
It's incredible. And I think it says a lot for the people that they surround themselves with and who they have really in their corner helping them out. Obviously, Bobby Scruffy, he's the legend there, and he's really the force that drives it. But at the end of the day, to see how much Jacob's even grown, watching those two as, not so much Jacob, but Logan, as a teenager coming through the ranks in Pennsylvania, and just seeing what they've built in these few short years, coming from nothing. I remember them telling stories about their hauler breaking down and all the craziness that they've dealt with. I think it's just built their character more than anything, and it's made them susceptible and be able to be flexible and know that, when the moment's there, to capitalize on it. And like I said, they've got really good people in their corner, and I think they're doing it the right way, even though at the beginning it was a little rough.
We've got like this kind of insane rookie battle too with the Outlaws. We've got 4 guys that are going to chase this thing, and they've all like already won World of Outlaws races. Where, who do you think comes out on top there? Is it Reitzel, or somebody like, can J-Mac kind of overcome this hole he's going to enter in when, when he finally gets here?
Yeah. I mean, obviously Aaron with his all-star championships that he has, but I think coming to the World of Outlaws is going to be a little bit different. Not that his talent level isn't there. I think he's easily going to be a front runner, but I think the schedule is going to be a lot different. It's going to be a lot more nights on the road away from home. Even though he's from Texas, there's still that comfort level of knowing that with the All-Stars, you're kind of staying Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania. You're really not on the road for hours and days at a time. So that could, I think, play into it. It'll be interesting to see James. I think he's going to be, we've seen how quickly him and Casey have meshed in that 9 car and what they've done there and coming off hot like he has. But like you said, staying at home, knowing that he's got a little one on the way waiting for him to arrive. And I think that might also set a fire underneath him to really take a charge and really make things happen, just because he's got so much to really race for, if you will.
Well, we've already got 5 All-Star races now in the books. Who is the title favorite with the All-Stars? Like, we're thinking maybe Eliason and Marks, but, could somebody else you think jump up here and win this thing, Baylog or, some of these other guys?
I do, just because I don't really think they start points racing until, I don't know if points really,
Attica's
yeah,
the first race. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So, I mean, this is obviously a test run, and there's nothing that can provide anything more than seat time, just getting laps behind the wheel. Obviously, I want to say Brent Marks because he's a Central PA guy, but really, even the All Stars have become extremely stout over the last couple of years. So I really think that's up in the books as well. I don't know. That one's a tough one.
Yeah, that one's definitely wide open. Well, I will let you go. I certainly appreciate the time this morning, but give me the plug city, Wing Nation, Lethal. Where can people find you? Keep up with everything. What's all that stuff?
Yes, you can go out to wingnation.com, get our gear, see what's going on with Aaron and Steve and I, where we're at, where we're traveling. With Lethal Chassis, you can go to lethalchassis.com. We've got our gear on there, and then obviously on Facebook, and then you can follow me on Twitter at Ashley Stremme. And sometimes I give a little inside tour of where I'm at and what I'm seeing. This week it's been a little crazy, so it's just a lot of retweeting DIRTRACKR at this point. But yeah, we have a lot of fun. We do a little bit of adventure here and there, so be sure to follow along. And thanks for having me, Justin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the time this morning, and good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.